Speaking of one-of-a-kinds, David King, welcome aboard.
Do it properly.
Good morning. Welcome.
Morning, Sammy. This will be a bit of fun today. But
Great to have
different
you.
while the boys have a bit of a break and a well-earned spell from G and Roscoe, obviously. So I think he's right. Is that where most of us sit?
I would have thought so. Melbourne, I don't know if there's anyone coming for Melbourne, but gee whiz, they are unconvincing at the moment. I know they're going to feature in your means test shortly, the Demons and their legitimacy, I suppose, for that real pointy end push for the premiership. But I've been given my categories this morning. I've got my categories. I'm following the rules. Well, I'll try to. Get the feeling you might take me.
I like when we discussed the pre-show with yourself, you wanted to take control off the top. I like this.
Did I?
Open the batting. Go for it.
Well, the King's Gambit caught my eye, but it says King's Gambit. So it's not Edmund's Gambit. It's King's Gambit.
It's a partnership here. You had some comments to make?
Well, my opening gambit is that Collingwood have just never been sexier. Ever. Obviously on top, enormous power, players to come back and they'll get better. But I think Collingwood, by virtue of how they're playing, are doing what they've never been able to do, and that's win new friends. Even if your love is with another set of colours, and I know this is sacrilegious territory to be venturing into, you've got to love watching them play. If you love football, you love watching Collingwood at the moment, regardless of what club you barrack for. How can you not, Kingy? They look even braver too and more aggressive in recent weeks. DeGoey's going to come back. Sidebottom's going to come back. McStay's going to come back. And we'll get to that topic of conversation later. But how can you not love Collingwood? And that's my gambit.
Yeah, it's a good one. I think wild cards win your games of football, particularly big games. And Dacos is probably the ultimate wild card in football at the moment with the role that he's playing and the success that he's having. But then you look at Port Adelaide, why are they so good? Well, they've got Rosie who swoops on opportunities and just finishes them. They've got some problems with their key position stocks, and we'll talk about that later. But they've got wild cards in Butters and Rosie that get it done. Houston's having a terrific season. Their kickers are amazing. You look at Brisbane, Cam Rayner's become their wild card. I know Ashcroft's doing amazing things in the middle, so too Lockie Neal. But Rayner's the one that I think's changed the course of their forward half. So unless you've got a wild card, someone that just does something extraordinary when you need it most, then you're in a bit of strife. We're going to get to Melbourne. Who's Melbourne's wild card? Is it Petrarca if you're kicking points? You can get a stack of footy in AFL at the moment, but unless it significantly impacts the scoreboard, what does it really mean?
I just hope, given Craig McRae's got so many of these wild cards that you speak of, that he holds Dacos in the middle when the cavalry comes back in, because they're going to be overflowing in there.
Where's he going to go? He
could go back to half-back.
No way.
Oh.
He'll never play half-back again in his life.
How they fit them all in?
He'll never go to half-back in his life.
I agree with you.
They'll sack Craig
But he's
McRae.
only there because DeGoey's been suspended, is he not?
No, I think he needed to explore what he had. I think that was the idea.
So he's had a look under the bonnet,
yes,
and he's found a V8.
Well, he's gone 36 and 37 touches, 19 score involvements in 2 weeks. He's kicked 13 goals for the seasons. I think it's 7 in the last 5 weeks, something like that. So we just don't have any other midfielders in the competition kicking goals like this guy.
The King's Gambit, or the Edmund Gambit, has got some feedback. You're dreaming, Sam. Stuff Collingwood. Go Blues. Steve. Predictable Steve, but gave me a little chuckle nonetheless. Rubbish. You're kidding yourself. Is this what it's like to run the means test?
Oh, yeah. Not all feedback's positive, Sammy. What it does, if you can just track forward, so this is why Lee Montagna does this really well. He looks at the ladder and he breaks down the final series and how it's going to look and the top four and the likelihood of winning the flag if you finish second or third rather than top. So the hardest part about winning the premiership is actually getting to the grand final. So that winning those big games first week of the finals to set you up, and then the prelim. Now, if we have a fourth team that is well below the top three, right? Let's just say it's the Dogs or Melbourne, which most people would have as a fair separated margin from the top three. And the top four generally get through to prelim final week. So if team two is Port Adelaide, they beat Brisbane week 1, they get a home final against the wraparound fourth finishing team. So the conversation being you're going to have one tough prelim and one slanted prelim. That's why it's a lot easier to come from second to get your opportunity in the grand final than it is to come from first, because you get that tougher prelim on the wraparound. So I'm looking forward to seeing who that fourth team is, and that's the chat today.
So a full suite of games to work through, the buys behind us. Your big issue out of round 16?
Well, the big issue, it has to be, and I've been Stuart Dew's greatest fan, all right, but it has to be, given what Damien Hardwick said last week in terms of that he's ready to come back and coach, and then there's always that game for the Suns. It feels like they have 6 that games a year. You've got to win this one. You've got to be competitive. You've got to win this one. And I just think when you look at the system and the style of play on the weekend, they really didn't throw anything at Collingwood. They really didn't challenge them in any meaningful way. Like when they got the footy, it was slow. When it went back into the times they had to defend, was there any great system to it? Was there any real challenge posed to Collingwood? They just moved the ball with absolute freedom. And I know they're top of the table, and the Suns are a fair way away from that. But you've got to have something to throw at them rather than just winning or scoring on talent. You know, Anderson does some brilliant things. Rowell, they do some brilliant things. King didn't have his best game, but we know he can do some amazing things. But I just felt it was checkers versus chess. They were playing a really scientific game, a really daring game, the Pies. It was explosive. It was outnumber. It was take risk. It was everything you want the game to be. And then I looked at the other side of the coin. I thought, are they really? How far off becoming that are the Suns? So I think it's probably for the first time that the dimmer switch.
I like those at home.
Is a real discussion, and I think Stuart Dew's done a reasonable job. I know the win-loss sheet doesn't reflect that. They're a unified club. They're a football club now. But the danger is you just see an impotent game plan.
Well, we expect more, don't we? We expect more of the Suns now. But that was embarrassing. So Collingwood come, they pack out your joint, and then they have their way with you. They were not even at the rate at any stage were they at the races. It was a complete and utter rollover. And so the dimmer switch you speak of, which I know he hates it, and it's a bit of a Groundhog Day topic. Take a name out here, put a name in there with Stuart Dew, but this is a side that's a club that's never been. So we're forever wondering, could they and should they be better? How long Stuart Dew been there for now? 6?
6 years, yeah.
6 years, contracted for next year. Forever under pressure, though, because the question will always be, should they be better with the talent that they've got and the talent that they've built? It's an open question that can't be answered.
And sometimes the draw really works against you. So you play Collingwood at home, and then next week you travel to Port Adelaide. Of all the times for this to happen, anyway, it's just one of those things that's going to be a stone in the shoe for the Gold Coast Suns until they have to make a decision, or do they feel they have to make a decision? You would think that with the Damien Hardwick suggestion that he's putting his hand up and he's ready to coach again, you'd have to consider it, wouldn't you?
There's just some games so that's 5 games now where they've lost by 43 or more. There's a 78, obviously, at the weekend, and a 10-goal loss to Carlton, a 50-point loss to Sydney in round 1, a 53-point loss to St Kilda in round 4. So still their season is potholed by these shockers.
But I'll say this again, because I've been on the Suns, and I like where they're going. I really do. They're going to get 3 kids in the off-season via the academy selections, and that'll give them a bit more depth. I still think they lack a little bit of depth. They got some high-end talent, but they lack a little bit of depth.
Yep, 3 kids coming.
Yeah, but when I saw it again on the weekend, I thought, you know what, this is a long way from where the top 2 or 3 teams are. From a sheer on-field point of view, they had 70-odd opportunities with the footy coming out of the defensive half. They kicked 2 goals. They couldn't stop Collingwood bringing the ball out of the back half. They kicked 11 of their 18 goals just on counterpunch, and it just looked pure. Yeah. That handball overlap game just put them to the sword. We know Collingwood are very good at clearance, so I didn't expect the Suns to beat them at clearance in terms of damage, but I expected them to be better, given that is their pride and joy, is the contested game and the clearance game. So they got mauled everywhere, and then kicking inside 50 just looked very basic. Just knock it in high and long, and expect Ben King or Levi to outmark Murphy and Moore. It's just not going to happen. So there were so many questions to ask about what the plan was for that game and what the plan is. So this is why, for the first time, I can probably see them sitting down today and saying, are we actually still on the right path? And I haven't said that all year because I like what Stewie has built and what they've done, but there's trouble looming.
I got to admit, Kingy, watching it, I thought he's no chance from there. That stage of the game, wet conditions, the distance, the situation, and it never looked like missing.
Well, they were very unlucky, the Bombers, weren't they, to have that man with the foot. This is the problem with playing against Port. They've got so many long kickers that are involved in the game. Like Burton's an extremely long kick. Farrell was knocking them through. Houston, you've just touched on. Finlayson can kick a long ball. So they've got these weapons that you just can't man them all up. I mean, any of those guys could have marked that surge kick out.
You're never safe.
And everyone will talk about, did Nick Martin make the wrong decision? Well, of course he did, but you're in the heat of battle like that. It's very difficult to remain 100% composed, and sometimes you learn more from that than a win. They were very good, the Bombers. They're 17 points down with, 8 minutes to go or something, 6 minutes to go, and found a way to find the lead, which was amazing.
Kyle Langford's having some sort of a season. Yeah. He's in many ways, not an untold story, but his story probably hasn't got the kudos that it deserves, and the numbers would back that up as well. He's been immense.
Yeah. And look, when guys have shots at goal after the shot, you want them to kick them. You don't want them to be the reason they lose. You want the team to be the reason teams lose, and you want the individual to be the reasons that they win.
Every neutral, when it comes to a post-siren kick, is going for the guy to kick the goal. Yeah. There's no one barracking for him to miss, is there? It's just one of those things.
What are your thoughts? Should 2 metre Peter have been on the mark or on the goal line?
There was a situation in the Collingwood game last week. I'm probably going to take you to something here that doesn't come to mind, but Darcy Moore was standing the mark, and it was at the MCG, and I can't remember who the kicker was. It was just, they were going to have to kick it from pretty much the edge of the square, right on their range. And Darcy Moore saw Mason Cox run past and said, "Maso, come and man the mark." And he did. And the umpire said, "No, you can't do that. Darcy, you come back and man the mark." So he didn't pay a fifth for stepping off the line, but
it was Walker.
So it was Tex. Yep. So why are they not allowed to do that? Or
I think that was an error. Don't mention umpire errors on the show. You're not allowed to.
Because it was either an error or it was a 50 for not standing. Otherwise, you're allowed to do it, surely, aren't you?
I think you should be able to replace the man on the mark.
Collingwood have done that all the time, or historically.
So
with
Pedro, should he have stood the mark or go the goal line?
Would it have made a difference?
Well, I think it's harder to kick over
Looked like he clearly cleared the man on the mark, though, didn't he? But I'd have to go back and have another.
The nerves of not clearing the man on the mark, I think, are a factor. I think there's a discussion there. I would like
from that range, you're probably thinking we're going to touch this on the line, right? So they all get back to the line. But that's the other part of it, is how well Port Adelaide protected the line as well.
Gave us a great photo, didn't it, of the goal umpire stuck in the middle.
It's like, where's Wally? It was unbelievable. Best bits, we have agreement on that. The pressure index. Now, for a team who's won 12 in a row, Kingy, a dozen, and nothing dirty about that dirty dozen either, it would be rare for us to venture into the Port Adelaide camp to find our pressure index, but there's something in the makeup of that side at the moment that's caught your eye.
Well, we're just talking about, they're a victim of circumstance a little bit. King Charles, he's seriously banged up. His first half was terrific. He took 4 contested marks. He finished the day with 7, but he's kicked 18 goals in 10 games this year. But in second half or late in games, he just looks like he can't move. He can't get off the line. And I just wonder how they manage that in the back half of the year. Is it just their lot? Is it just, okay, we're just going to roll on? Because you can see that becoming a problem deep in the pointy end of the season. They've got a problem with... I still think they've got a problem at fullback, but they refute that. That's okay. But if you're talking about Langford, you've got to talk about why that happened, because he let up on Mackenzie a couple of times.
So you think Mackenzie's the elephant in the room come the point when it's a game, when the games are decided by the finest of margins?
Yep, and they've won a dozen in a row. So we're not going after anyone. We're just saying what are the possible windows of opportunity for the opposition, and that is one. And now the ruck situation becomes an enormous headache. So there's some key problems for the Power. Hit-outs on the weekend, 40-17. I mean, let's just say they come up against a Melbourne in a big game at the in the final, and you've got the twin towers there to.
Melbourne might kick 18.
They might.
We'll get to them in a
We're
moment.
talking about windows of opportunity, aren't we? 10-3 hits to advantage. They started to smash the ball forward. They started to grab the ball out of the ruck. Big Flipper was terrific. They scored 8 times from stoppage compared to Port Adelaide's 4, but unfortunately for the Bombers, it was only a 4-point advantage. So there are reasons why I've still got this. I've still just got a little asterisk on Port, and they're playing some beautiful football, and their match winners are turning up when the games need to be separated. I just love what Rosie was able to do. When he got that handball from power play, but he was never missing that goal. And Butters finds a way to inject himself in the game when they needed him a couple of times, which was really significant. They're in really good form. They've got a great profile, particularly offensively.
But gee, Scotty Lycett was a bizarre situation, wasn't it? So for him to be withdrawn at the last possible opportunity, Dante Vicentini was in the southern stand, ready to watch the game, had to be strapped and prepared, and didn't get out there until well and truly into the first quarter. So the ruck situation as well, like should Scotty Lycett, break down in finals, before finals? Who do they possibly? You can't be having Finlayson.
Well, he's been very good, Finlayson. Maybe
as your number one.
Well, not as your number one, and we just got a text come through from Sean as well. What's going on with Sam Hayes?
Now, we talked about him.
We just had a look at his numbers, didn't we?
Well, Sean, he dominated.
In the Sandful.
He dominated in the Sandful at the weekend. 19 disposals, 41 he'd had, 7 inside 50s in a 10-point win for Port at Sandful.
So I'm not schooled on what that form's like and who he was up against and all that sort of thing. So I'm going to have to sit out on that one. But Teakle's out for another couple of months. So there is an area there that's right now a little bit vulnerable. But they've just got they've got a great luxury now with the gaps in the ladder. They're entrenched in the top 2. Management is everything from here on in, and they've got to get a ruckman back and in form.
I wanted to talk to you about PFI, Preliminary Final Integrity. This is a haunting a set of numbers as you're likely to see for Melbourne, who kicked 5-15 and missed another 7, as their coach said there. 73 entries, nearly 30 more than the Giants, plus 19 clearance, plus 44 contest, and they don't win the game.
So let's just balance the argument, right? Because Melbourne supporters feel like we're going at Melbourne. We're not. They are the last 6 weeks. They're the best team defensively without the footy. They just deny the opposition all sorts of luxuries. So you can't score when you go in your forward 50, and you have real trouble moving the ball. They just win the ball back between the arcs better than anyone else in the comp. So tick. That's a great asset to have. They're the best team at winning contests when the ball's in general play. So they just cold beat you face to face. Okay, so they're doing a lot right. So let's just put that on the table. But if you're looking at where the problem is, they just don't get any reward for their work. They just can't put games away. And we've talked about their forward 50 for ages. We really have. And so has Simon. I feel like he said it a lot in every post match that there's games that they should have won or they should have been more competitive in that they haven't. 73 inside 50s, you should win by 8 goals. Simple as that. You just should win by 8 goals. 5 marks inside the forward 50 and only 2 of those in the corridor. Like, are they going too wide when they go in? I know the conditions were really poor on the weekend, but this is not a one-week issue. They've averaged 61 points for the last 6 weeks. Said it last night. They're 17th in the competition for scores for. So you just can't dominate games like this and not win. It's something they need to fix. They need to look at other options. What is the experiment to correct it is what I'm looking at thinking, why haven't they looked at Petrarca down there? I think they've got enough midfield options, and they're smashing him in the midfield anyway. So why if you're getting that sort of volume of opportunity, why not look at Petrarca?
Particularly with Oliver to come back in.
Yeah, and I'd even look at Oliver forward. I mean, I would just explore what you can do with the 2 Bulls that are generally playing midfield minutes.
Because personnel, they are in a state of flux, haven't they? Gawn hasn't really worked like they probably envisaged with Grundy coming in. Petty has come and then he's gone. They went back to Ben Brown yesterday. Van Rooyen's been dropped. They lost Fritsch early to injury and he's been their leading goal kicker for a few years now. Yeah, so that spells trouble. So they haven't kicked more than 8 goals since round 11. And they've gone 8-13, 8-18, 8-15 and 5-15.
So we know it's a problem. What are you looking at to fix the problem? Okay, Ben Brown, you can say was an option, and the conditions didn't really suit.
Well, he's batted that question away in
But
recent times, the
but
coach.
this has been a constant discussion for weeks. Now, even in their grand final run, their premiership run, everything clicked for the last 3 weeks. And they hit the scoreboard and they hit it heavy. In that grand final, it was awesome. And right through that final series. So I just wonder if Simon needs to say, okay, and the texts are coming through thick and fast that Petrarca can't hit a target, is not converting himself in the forward 50. But I think it's really difficult when you're asking him to play midfield minutes with the running volume in there and then to go forward and impact and kick true. I think you need to start him forward. But if that doesn't work, that's it. They can't win it unless they can put an 80-point score on the scoreboard at the moment. And at the moment, they're miles off that.
I said no one's coming for Melbourne early, and what I meant by that was no one's coming from the bottom up to potentially unseat them from that 4th spot. But Kane dropped us a text earlier, Kingy. No one coming for Melbourne. The members are coming. I'll give you the tip. We are a disgrace. Nothing has changed since late 21. We were found out after the mid-season break last year, and Simon Goodwin hasn't changed a thing. It's a joke that because he won a flag, he gets off with no criticisms. That might sum up the thoughts of some Melbourne supporters.
If your point of difference are the tools, the two big boys in the ruck, right, and that's where they've invested in the off-season, you can't get any more out of them than be a top 4 or 5 clearance score from clearance team, a number 1 post-clearance contest team, which is where they sit right now, and number 1 defensively. You can't get much more out of those guys. So this is on the coach now. So Simon, show us what you can do to create. And without Fritsch, he gets luxuries now to say, okay, let's just have a look. Let's try something totally different. I don't know what it is, but they would have a greater hand. Like Cozzy Pickett doesn't look like the same player to me.
No.
He doesn't look as hungry, but then he does a couple of things. You go, gee, that's nice, But I guess we're always wanting more at AFL level, but they need to find an answer. Or this group, which is a star-studded group, again, are just going to be a one-time premiers.
In many ways, they're playing the best team as well, given our topic of conversation next week, and it's St Kilda, who ask us as many questions as any side out there defensively. They get numbers back. They make life hard. It's going to be fascinating to see how Melbourne look to combat their issues this weekend. Absolutely fascinating. Yep. So our preliminary final integrity conversation resides around the Melbourne Football Club. A lot of texts coming in. Dirk dropped us one. Please ask Kingy if Melbourne's forward line is on life support. Love, Kingy. Well, Dirk, I think you might have got your answer. And this text as well from 090. It all changes if Melbourne learn to kick straight. But that is part of the problem that we're discussing, isn't it? One thing feeds into the other, and it would be far too simplistic.
And Michael is having a crack at me because Port have won 12 in a row and your comments don't matter. That's spot on. But just because you're winning doesn't mean that everything's perfect, and just because you're losing doesn't mean that everything's broken.
I've got an open question for you, though.
Yes.
In fact, you had one for me. We've got 2, as a matter of fact. But you had a good open question earlier that was taking a broader look at the competition and where it sits after 16 rounds.
So which teams have improved this year? Would you think about your own, assess your own team and say, have we improved? So all the off-field selections and directions taken at the end of last season, have they taken you forward as a footy club? So your investment at the trade or free agency, or whether it's the draft, have they taken you forward?
Okay. So I'll go straight to the top of the ladder.
Righto.
They've improved, haven't they?
Collingwood have definitely improved.
And then I look at the team who's sitting second.
Port Adelaide.
Well, they've won 12 in a row.
So there's a reason why the top 3 are the top 3.
Yeah.
Because they've all improved. Collingwood, Port Adelaide and Brisbane.
I'm fascinated by Brisbane's improvement, and we know we had Chris Fagan on last Friday, the Redeem Team documentary that he sat them down over summer. You buy in. The stars have to buy in. Everyone has to buy in to team defence, and they've well and truly embraced that, haven't they? Whether or not that was also fueled by the mid-season omissions of a couple of elder statesmen as well.
That's what I think, but that's a discussion for another day. So I don't think Melbourne have improved. I think they were going better at this stage last year. St Kilda have improved.
They've improved.
I don't think the Dogs have improved. I think the Dogs were better last season and obviously the year before. The Crows and the Bombers have definitely improved and are looking probably the best versions of themselves for years. Geelong haven't improved. GWS I want to talk about in a moment. They have made significant change and look terrific.
Have they ever?
And the rest, I'd say, have all regressed. Fremantle, Gold Coast, Sydney, Carlton, Richmond, Hawthorn, North Melbourne and West Coast.
Yeah.
So I've got 7 of the 18 have improved. It's not a great rate, is it?
No, it's not actually. And when you think about some of those teams who have fallen away, they've fallen away dramatically. I mean, obviously, there were high expectations at Carlton. Sydney have fallen off the cliff. The Gold Coast, we expect more. Fremantle finished 5th and won 15 games last year. They're 11th and battling. Richmond are obviously a club in transition. And then we've got our bottom three whose stories have been well told. But, yeah, we're in the minority when we're talking of teams who have improved to a level that are worth discussing.
So, why is that? So why haven't those teams improved? I mean, some have fallen off the face of the earth.
Well, there's varying reasons to all of it, isn't there?
So is it? And it always gets back to all of our equalisation systems, and it's a discussion for another day. But I don't think any of them work really.
Off the text, gee, Sammy, did you just wander out of your crease before that ad break started? Did a bit of a Johnny Bairstow. The bales are just about whipped off as well. And I'm just as filthy, to be honest. I've got no explanation as to where we're at, but we'll just plough on regardless. I've got another open question for you. So the Giants, could they, in Adam Kingsley's first year? So they've won 4 of the last 5. They're 1 win out of the 8. They've got Hawthorn, Sydney, 2 teams, again, who haven't improved, Carlton, and the Suns to come. And of the past 5, a 6-point loss to Richmond sits in that. Super competitive throughout as well. They've lost once by more than 19, and that was that 10-goal loss to Collingwood in round 9. They play the game in an honest manner.
So when you're this team, you're looking to say, okay, well, we're going to rebuild, or we're going to reset of sorts. Not a complete rebuild because there's enough there. So what do you want when you rebuild? You want 2 key pillars down back. And they got Buckley and Taylor that are going to be there for what we call a footy generation, 5 to 7 years. They're going to be a lock at centre-half back, full-back. Absolutely amazing what they're doing defensively. And they were able to hold. So the flip side of the Melbourne discussion is they have 73 inside 50s and they concede 5 marks this back 6. They concede, okay, you can say 20 scores. That's still not a bad rate. It's 5 goals in the end. So I love what these two are doing. I love the way that the coach has given them confidence. Now, their back 6 looks different to what we've seen in the past, but I don't think many people talk about Isaac coming like they should. I don't think I think the guys that they've been using across the halfback flank have been getting the job done, is basically what I'm saying. So their counter-punch game is really good. At times it looks like the tsunami's back.
Yeah.
Maybe not as evident on the weekend. But I think when you look at their profile the last 6 weeks, there's always a team that surprises you. They got the second best profile in the comp the last 6 weeks.
What?
Yep, they have. Their defensive stuff is only second to Melbourne. Their clearance work is top 4. Their contest work outside in general play is top 6 in the comp. They've got some issues with when they go inside 50. They can't quite score as heavily as others, but they're looking terrific.
What I also like is that their elder statesmen are back. They're back in a big way. So Canelio, he was. You might have discussed this last night on first grade. He was gone.
He looked gone.
He was. Yep. He's back. So another 30 disposals yesterday. Josh Kelly is class. 26, the 2 goals for him, kicks goals from midfield. Toby Green was born to be a captain. Tom Green is having a superstar year. And then there's Himmelberger they're fighting to keep, who's been a key man at either end. And then you got the kids like Callahan, Ash, O'Halloran. So they've got
Briggsy.
We've got a text off the 40 Wings temper. Make sure you discuss Kieran Briggs, who's been a story this year as well.
He had more hit-outs to advantage than Max Gawn.
Yeah,
on the weekend. Look, it's really exciting to see Kingsley doing what he's doing with this young group, and they got I think some freedom to come at the end of the year. There's a lot of talk that they'll be trying to get pick 1 and trying to get Harley Reid. It would be a different football club if they get a couple of those. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in the next 18 to 24 months, given the foundation.
So Hawthorn to come at home Saturday twilight.
Could they play finals?
That's what I'm asking. Could they? Could they? Would they? Should they? It's a pretty kind draw. Hawthorn, Sydney, Carlton and Gold Coast to come.
Hawthorn, Sydney,
Carlton, Gold Coast to come.
How many of those do they win?
So they've got the opportunity is there for them. And what I like about them is they play with spirit. And it's a credit to Adam Kingsley's coaching. He's got total buy-in. They play with spirit. They're competitive. They're honest. They play they play a good brand, as you say. The Tsunamis had a bit of flavour about it this year as well, and they've got the key backs and a lot of tools still at their disposal. So
They got rolled by the West Coast, didn't they?
that loss is just unfathomable, isn't it? And could be one that they absolutely ruin. In fact, when it happened, people thought, is this the one they're going to come back to at season?
Everyone else has been getting 10 percentage points and the 4 points.
Yeah, that's right.
And they've lost to them.
Oh, it's like the petty cash in Monopoly when you play West. You just get the big bounty, and they've been sent to jail.
They've been given the old bank error.
Amazing.
97 percentage points. So that in the end, that potentially could cost them finals.
Toby Bedford against his old side, there was a critical moment where he ran back with the flight. I can't remember who was coming back the other way. It was on the outer wing, forced a contest.
2 minutes to go.
Yep, went back in the other way.
Bounced up and tackled, up and chased straight away.
They've got some spirit, I tell you, the Giants. Ash dropped us a text. Injured backman is the main reason for those teams' demise that we spoke about, the teams not improving.
There you go.
If you track the key backman with results and improvements, even Taylor, who you mentioned, Kingy, coming back has made a significant difference at GWS.
Callum Brown. Now, Dave, this is why I like our texters. Callum Brown, he does some things. My God, can he kick a football?
Yep.
He's a ripper, and they're just scratching the surface with some of these guys. And until they know they can seriously play, you won't see the best of them.
Carlton aren't on our means test watch list, but Moose dropped us one. The Blues are back, Kingy. The Blues are back.
Forward handball. It looked good from clearance yesterday, didn't it?
Not sure about that, Moose. I wouldn't mind seeing it against Fremantle, obviously, this weekend, and then I might just tentatively jump back on board. But, yeah, Cripps looks a different player again the last couple of weeks. The forward handball, the burst at the front. It was all at the back in the first half of the season.
Good.
And that handball just passing on the hot potato from one to the next. Now it's out the front.
I think they're playing with more aggression. They're not just accepting. They're not just folding at the first bit of pressure from the opposition. They're challenging the tackler.
Yep.
They're challenging whether it's break the tackle, break it and shrug the shoulders, get the fend going, or have wave runners coming through. What that was as hard as I've seen Sam Walsh work for weeks yesterday.
Billy, Sammy, I thought what Riley West did as a sub was amazing for the Bulldogs, turned the game around.
Very good.
He was highlighted last night on the crack wasn't he?
Joey loved his game.
Yep, that was a very good game. Essendon coming back down to earth. Now they are playing the good teams off the text. And Sammy, as a Swan supporter, I feel that we have been left behind, says Peter from Peakhurst. That was a curiosity out of the weekend. 6-16.
They were good. I thought they were very good in the first half. That's. If the Swans play like that, they'll be making a charge for the 8 as well. That was awesome football, aggression through the corridor. That's Sydney. They played timid footy for about 6 weeks in the middle stages of this year.
Yep.
And if they play like that, they're a challenge.
Having said that, Robbie Fox walking into the club today.
Foxy. He's had a bad one, hasn't he?
He has had a bad one, Foxy. The curiosity Sydney's kicking, but there's another curiosity. Dogs haven't improved, David. They spent nearly every round last season outside the top 8, but most of this season inside it. Still plenty of unrealised upside. Ugle-Hagan will continue his upward trajectory this season and explode next year as most players go to another level in their 4th year, while Sam Darcy is the wild card. Returned to the VFL on Saturday and kicked 3. That's from Joe.
So he's playing forward. That's interesting, isn't it?
It is interesting.
I wonder would you pick Darcy? In 3 weeks' time, will Darcy replace Lobb?
Yeah, I saw you discussed him heavily last night.
I just don't understand what he does.
They've tried him on a wing. They've tried him forward. Obviously, he fills in the ruck.
Big cash.
Pretty big cash for the role that he's playing, which is effectively a third banana forward. Don't think he can play back.
How many third tall forwards have separated games this year? It's not a spot you want to be investing in.
Not to that level, no. So would his position be under threat in the back?
Well, it's a development position as well. That's the thing. So if you're going to bring a Darcy in, he's got to play that type of role for a little while he finds his feet at AFL level. So anyway.
It's a curiosity, his spot going forward, Rory Lobb. But there's another curiosity,
There is.
and it concerns last year's Premier Kingy.
Do you know, in the last 6 weeks, the easiest team to move the ball against coast to coast?
Don't say it. Don't say it.
No, I'm not going to say that.
It isn't.
No, it's not. I think.
Is it or not?
No, it's not. I'll go a different angle. The second easiest team to score against when you go inside 50 is the Cats.
What?
Yeah.
The second easiest in the comp
And
once
you
inside.
know who's last.
West Coast are last.
Yeah, West Coast last.
So this is the same Geelong side with Henry, Stuart, Collar Jasny, De Koning, Radaglia.
What's happened? So looking at them thinking, are they too intercept?
Hungry?
Are there too many cooks down there? Like Radagalia's going after the ball, DeCone's going after the ball, Stuart's going after the ball. Look, on the weekend, they just looked all at sea. That they got led up on in that first half so many times, and they made alterations, which is fine.
There's only one personnel change between seasons, and that's Asava going back, and he's been deemed a success story. So
what? How is it? How is it like this?
I don't know. And actually, Sava was subbed off in it, so we can make things out of things that aren't there. But are they too big? Are there too many pieces of the jigsaw as per the board? So Asava wanted out last year. They kept him, and they reinvented him as a defender. But very rarely this year, given their injury concerns, have they all been available at once. Now, they were at the weekend, and Asava was withdrawn. Henry's played forward at times, but he played back at the weekend.
Yeah.
DeCone's been experimented, came back at the weekend.
It's not even really about the individual names, is it? It's just about the collective. I haven't seen them like this. I mean, they've always been a great back six. They've always been terrifically programmed and organised behind the ball. Like, that's one of I would have thought Chris Scott's stamps is hard to score against, hard to play against. So this is sort of sight unseen for me, and they're still doing a lot right around the edges, with their contest work, and they make it difficult for you to move the ball coast to coast, but once you go in, you can score. So are they defending higher? Are they trying to win the ball back earlier? Probably, and they're probably doing a reasonable job of that. But it just looks so vulnerable. For the first time in a long time, that defensive 50.
I like the way Sydney went in, though.
Yeah.
Well, they went through the corridors. When they're at their best, they do that. But they did everything they could to avoid bombing it in for the obvious reasons. They went low. They were darts inside 50.
So if you can get the ball through the corridor against the Cats, they're in real trouble. It's just one to watch. And if it doesn't correct, well, they won't correct in season 23. And then the discussion starts. How do they say they missed the finals this year, right? How do they get better next year? That'll be the discussion.
They've got a glut of games at GMHBA to finish, so we know how strong they are. North Melbourne to come, Essendon after that, and then they've got Brisbane up at the Gabba.
So you got them in?
Geez, that's a question I hadn't pondered this morning.
That's why we ponder.
Yes, maybe by the thinnest of margins. And I'm only saying that. Well, I'm saying it with no confidence. I'm only saying it because they've got those games at home to come. Where
for the first time,
hard to beat.
I have more confidence in GWS getting in than Geelong.
And if they missed, and Sydney missed,
it's just an amazing season from the two grand finalists of last year. Not a lot has to go wrong for it all to go wrong. I understand that, and no one's going after Geelong because they've been so good for so long. Reigning premiers, obviously, but it's just a surprise to see what's happening behind the ball.
You're right, David, about the Cats. It's as if we won the flag, went into the rooms and said, see yous in 2024. 5-3-6. Geelong's midfield is their problem. And we know they've had some personnel issues in there, but they're not on their own. Lots of clubs have
Max Holmes on a wing? I thought he was supposed to be the inside Chris Judd, breaking from centre bounces, breaking from stoppages. Yeah.
Arms up emoji.
Oh, the old arms up emoji.
Enough for you. We're going off script here, but Scott Pendlebury, who's been just so good for so long at Collingwood, will this weekend break the all-time disposals mark, unless he has a really quiet game, which has been set by Robert Harvey for so long.
5 best and fairest, 6-time runner-up, 3-time third, 6-time All-Australian, a Norm Smith medal winner, a premiership player, which I think he'll be a 2-time premiership player at the end of this year. He has been unbelievable.
So he's averaging over the course of 372 games, 25.9 disposals a contest. So he's had 9,643. 9,656 is the watermark set by Banger Harvey.
And do you know what? I reckon Nick Dacos has given him a new injection of enthusiasm to run and gun and create. Those two give the ball to each other more than any other pairing in the comp for a decade.
He loves playing with him, doesn't he? Master
they wax
and
the
wane. Apprentice.
Yeah, and I think it's great for both parties. The footy IQ that he's learning off Scott is going to take him a long way. But what he's doing for Scott is challenging him to become better again and late in his football career, and they're both in great form.
Michael, enjoy the means test. It's all good banter and opinions. Have a good day. Thank you, Michael.
Oh,
Try to have a
that's
good.
better.
Always nice to hear from nice people. The debate. You can invest.
Bob didn't agree with her. Bob said he's never heard so much shite in all his life.
Come on, Bob. The debate. You can invest with an ex-Goldman banker in your corner. Download Sife. You can buy the best stocks in one swipe or leave it to the pros with ready-made diversified orders. Download Sife. My debate today, Kingy, I'm starting a new hashtag.
Yeah. What's that?
Pray for Oleg. Pray for Oleg Markov at Collingwood.
Hashtag.
Sadly, I can't help but fear that his days, the Tasha's days, are numbered. And I say that with no pleasure because he's playing some good footy.
While we sit here, can you tweet that out?
From being delisted at Gold Coast to playing an important role in the best team in the comp. That is Oleg Markov. But the cavalry, DeGoey, Sidebottom, McStay, they're coming in. There's no question they're coming in. It's just who's going out.
Well, DeGoey's this week.
Yep.
I think Sidebottom's the week after.
And McStay will be somewhere in and amongst that as well. Pray for Oleg.
Well, I had a look at his game on the weekend. I thought that's the best game that I've seen him play. So, for his whole career, 17 disposals, and 9 of those 17 become scores. So just to put that into perspective, so Jack Sinclair, who everyone thinks is All-Australian, hasn't had more than 9 score involvements. Dan Houston, who's another halfback, he hasn't had more than 9. So that game just shows, I don't know whether it's as easy as tip Ollie out. I don't think Nick's going back. I think he's going forward, if anywhere.
Oh, because my debate is the debate that Craig McRae and the coaching staff and Leper and all those guys will have to have when they sit down over the magnet board and try to find, 23 spots for 27.
Yeah, and DeGoey's coming in and Sidebottom's coming in. So there's 2 spots have to be found.
I'm saying 3 because McStay's coming in.
Well,
and I know he's a bit banged up at the moment and people texting in saying, why didn't you play VFL? And I can't give you an answer for that. He obviously had the setback with the finger. But if he's fit, he's coming in.
If he's fit, he's coming in.
If he's fit, he's coming in.
I think he is too, because you recruit the player, you go after the man for a specific reason. They're still making a decision, I think, between Cox and Frampton. Frampton on the weekend, he avails so much flexibility because he can go into the ruck, he can go forward, he can go back. So,
and Sammy Watson just telling me Dan McStay missed at the weekend at the second tier VFL level because he was crook, so he was sick. So no issue with the finger, just a bit of a virus.
One thing you don't do is don't trust footy clubs. DeGoey last year, can we just put this on the record? When he come back last year after, I think he had a injury for about 3 or 4 weeks, and they trained him up after his little misdemeanor. From rounds 20 to 26, he was the 6th rated midfielder in the competition last year. So that last 6 games of the season, he's averaged 21 disposals, 6 clearances, and a goal a game. That's what we're expecting to come back in this year. I'm thinking the Pies are only going to get better. That's the scary part. That is the scary part with Collingwood is their damaged players are coming. Fancy bringing in DeGoey to a team that's doing what they're doing.
Pies will have injuries. There will be injuries. There always is, says this text. McStay will play. Cox will play ahead of Cameron if it comes to that.
Cox? No, I
don't.
I'm
I'm going Darcy Cameron for sure.
I don't agree with that.
But what if they don't have injuries? Teams have had clean runs before in the back end. It could be a real headache for them. Again, though, the sort of headache that you want to have.
You think Oleg in your Pray for Oleg hashtag.
Pray for Oleg.
You're worried about Oleg.
I'm worried about Oleg.
I think Oleg, if he keeps up that form, will still be there.
I'll pray for Oleg. It's like Save Ferris. Save Oleg. What they got right, Loop Logistics. Loop Logics, the Swiss Army knife of construction management. Loop Logics, the future of construction management. For a free demo, visit looplogics.com. I've got this down. I'm not sure if you agree with me, Kingy, but I thought they got the Brad Close tackle on Aaron Francis right. No case to answer. It was the view of the MRO that despite having Francis in a vulnerable position, they wrote, Close attempted to slow momentum in taking him to ground and that in the circumstances he was not careless in tackling in that manner. Did they get it right?
I have no idea.
Take those splinters out, would you?
No idea. I mean,
Oh, no, it's hard. It's hard.
It's some are and some aren't, and there's so much confusion. What I want from the AFL, and there's no one in this chair, so it's a little bit hard. I want what they want. Give us an idea of what you want the player to do, so that he doesn't get penalised. So do you release the handle? If you've got an arm and you're pinning, do you then release that? Does the umpire then have to make a call on a ball up or a free kick? Because this is going to go on forever. And I'm telling you, and you continue to laugh at me, round 23, round 24, there will be no slinging, there will be no driving, there will be very little tackling from Collingwood, Port Adelaide, Melbourne.
Listen, there wasn't any of that in what Brad Close just did, and some people would have had him suspended for it. He didn't drive, he didn't sling, he didn't dump.
He twisted
He was
him.
tackling a player 30 kilos heavier than him and trying to hold him up.
That's why I say I've got no idea on this one. But we're going to debate one every week.
Of course, it's mate.
So
Bill Murray's Groundhog Day had nothing on this, and we are sick of it heartily, aren't we? It's part of the new. It's part of the footy news cycle in 2023. Happens on the weekend. Will they challenge? Won't they challenge? Yes. Tribunal? No. Sometimes appeal? No. It gets to Thursday before we start thinking about the footy again because we've had all manner of legal mumbo-jumbo interfering all the way through.
It's stupid, really, when you think about it.
It is stupid. You know what's not stupid?
What's that?
All the seedings. I've got them here. Can we have a bit of fun with these? Or
How many are we doing?
well, how many are we doing?
Yeah,
I thought we did 5.
Jared, well, it used to be 4. Now we've morphed into 5.
Oh, I've got 5 in front of me, but nevertheless, I've got
okay.
time to add another because we've got to take a break. We've got to take a break.
Righto.
So I've got the 5.
Righto.
Okay, we'll go with 5.
A-Rod's just dropped in, mad Hawthorn supporter, and we like to compare notes between North Melbourne and Hawthorn. If we merged clubs, right, and you could have the pick of all players in all areas, I think the merge of Hawthorn and North would still have the worst back six in the comp.
That is so harsh for you to offer up. And mind you put them on the agenda last night, or your running mates did.
Something's got to give there. If you can't defend on the way in and you can't
What's
use the
going
ball
on?
on the way out, you cannot play behind
So is
the
that
ball.
the individual or is that
No,
the system?
Got some tough calls to make, the Kangaroos.
So have we, because we've got the seedings. Someone having a crack at me. Get off the fence. Put you on the line with your seedings. Always having each way bets. What have I done to deserve that, 029? I've got my seedings.
What do you got? Who got a 5?
Do we start with 5?
Yep.
Melbourne, and then they just hang on to the 5 too. I was tempted to leave them out altogether, but I'm putting them in at 5.
I got them at 5 as well.
Oh,
I got Melbourne at 5. They're doing a lot right, but until they show us that they can find an answer forward, we're probably going to have to weigh them down.
I know we're projecting, but I'm really projecting at 4. I want it to be different. You won't have my 4.
I'll bet you I do.
Crows.
I have the Crows at
You've
4.
got the Crows at 4.
I think they're the most dangerous team.
So do I.
On the move, yeah, I absolutely do.
They are a legitimate threat. If they can jag a first final at home somehow, I reckon they can seriously do some damage. Road form is...
Could we see a showdown in the finals this year?
How good would that be?
Yeah. 3, I've got Brisbane.
They still wouldn't get it on Friday night. 3, you've got Brisbane. 3, I've got Port Adelaide. And only because...
Won 12 in a row.
I know that. But for all the issues you mentioned, and I wrote this down before I came in this morning, I'm worried about the ruck and I'm worried about key back just when the whips are seriously cracking. I love them. I love watching them. They're entertaining. I love the Ken Hinkley story. Awesome. I've just got them at 3, just with a couple of causes for concern.
Massive fan of what Chris Fagan's done with this team at Brisbane. Set some standards. They're all buying in. The best defensive product we've seen from Brisbane for years. They are right now.
And that's why I've got them at 2. They are footy's version of the redeemed team, like Fagan said. Whether it's that and or the decisions they made a couple of weeks ago with Gunston and Rich, whatever it is, it's lit a fire under this side and they're a different looking outfit. They get if they finish top 2 and they get those 2 finals, look out at the Gamma.
Just got to win the first final regardless. Port Adelaide at 2 for me. I love the way they play, the dare with which they play, and their skill is just ridiculous. And we've both got the Pies, I assume, at number 1.
Collingwood.
And they're getting better. It could be a gap in the comp. This is quite a good text. Who would coach the merger? Clarkson or Mitchell?
Cage fight for it?
Oh, that's a very good one.